good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you're joining us from in the world. We are a live recorded show. I'm RJ Horner. I'm the Vice President of Voice of Men 360. I'm also the host here in Open Up. And I want to just let you know that Voice of Men 360 is a non-for-profit organization founded in 2020 in Toronto, Canada, and we were created because many men and boys are seeking support in areas of their lives that they're not able to manage. And we wanted to step up and help them to relieve those burdens and stresses that men go through in the challenges of day-to-day life. So we are part of International Men's Day, and International Men's Day is now represented in has now been serving for over 21 years and is represented in 90 countries around the world doing various activities annually. So IMD follows 6 pillars, and which represent the overall well-being of men and boys, and we stand by those same pillars and walk in those footsteps. So why is Open Up so important? Because men and boys are not open with their hearts and willing to share their matters with people. We keep our emotional challenges within ourselves for a long period of time, and at some point it's bound to explode in a way that could be uncontrollable. So we want to create an open space and allow individuals to share their life journey through our platform. We would aim to create awareness about the life challenges and the struggles that men and boys have to overcome. There are no limitations with gender, age, ethnicity, or sharing their life journey. We want all to participate. Our goal is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program. Open Up is on Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. to 10:30 Eastern Time, and it is recorded live. Each week we'll bring individuals to share their life experiences with you. Our special guest today has a PhD in psychology, a master's in social work. She's a mediator, educator, a coach, a consultant in mental health and addiction specialist. She's also been Miss Canada Worldwide Elite. Please welcome Vinita Puri to Open Up. Thank you for joining us and sharing your life journey with us this Sunday morning.
Make a correction. So I'm working on my PhD in psychology. I don't have it yet, but one day I will.
So it did say, is that I see a note here, CAND, so it probably means candidate for PhD.
Candidate, yeah. So I'm in the progress. I'm working on it. And I'm proud to say I'm Miss Canada World Universal Elite 2021-2022.
Wow, that's an honor. Wow. So you are a beautiful lady. I can see that. The world is recognizing that. But you're more than that. You're well educated. You're a spokesman. It sounds like you're doing a lot of work in spiritual guidance for people. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work you do.
Sure. I feel very blessed to live my life purpose. Not everyone gets an opportunity to do that in life. And the journey to that is a spiritual one. Growing up, I faced a lot of discrimination. I was born with a congenital birth defect known as aniridia. So my vision is I have a visual impairment that does impact how well I can view text and see in general, because glare really impacts and distorts the images that I see. So thankfully, though, with the technology revolution and me being resourceful, accessing supports, and also with the help of my family, I was able to become a member of the CNIB, which stands for Canadian National Institute of the Blind. And they provided me education and support. So I've been able to work really hard and, put myself through school. And it's been hard. I've been dedicated to it because when I was growing up, there wasn't that access and there was no understanding of what I was going through. So teachers, in fact, would tell my parents, your daughter is likely not going to get past high school. Like, she's not smart, because I was reclusive and kids used to make fun of me. I was bullied a lot. Not just because of my disability, but at that time, there weren't a lot of South Asians when I grew up in Mississauga at that time in the 80s. So I was quiet. I was shy and I couldn't see very well. I would try to sit at the front and squint, and people would make fun of me, right? Because all the cool kids are always sitting at the back of the class. And so I never had a voice really. I feel like as I've gotten older, I've found my voice, but it's taken a lot of time. And I think that because I went through what I did go through, I wanted to make sure nobody else experiences what I went through, which is to be judged, which is to not have a voice and to feel hopeless. You know, a person needs to learn how to feel good about themselves, and it's really hard if you don't have the supports. So, this is why I became a social worker.
And thank you for that. That's exactly what we're talking about. What made you become you? You know what I mean? What
Yeah.
made you or put you in this position to help other people? And you mentioned your family support. So go back for me, especially during the 80s. That's probably the only true support you could have trusted at that time, right? For a young girl, a young. Now, are you an immigrant or were you born in Canada?
No, I was born in Canada and my parents both came from India.
Mhm.
Now, at that time, I think a lot of immigrants, you know, they're hard workers. They want to be successful, and they didn't really know how to support me. They wanted to. They did try to talk to the principal and say, you know, our daughter's being bullied. But at that time, there wasn't really too much that they did in the school system, and you know, I guess my family didn't know what else they could do.
Right.
And you know, like, so they didn't know how to be more assertive about it. And it's a systemic thing, right? So it requires everybody to care. It requires the teachers to care, the principals, you know. And now I feel it's so different. I mean, there's so many intervention programs, so many prevention programs, so much awareness. So many kids are actually doing these things, which is amazing. But at that time, I think that they honestly said, you know what, people are just like that.
Hmm.
People call you a paki, or you know, I would bring sometimes, you know, my traditional Indian food for lunch. They would say, oh, it smells like curry, so gross. And it wasn't just emotional and mental abuse. I was beaten up. Like, I recall, I still have those memories of being kicked in the stomach over and over again, being punched in the face, coming home with black eyes, my nose being broken and bleeding. And most of the, I mean, girls and boys both bullied me, but the boys in particular were more physically aggressive, I would say, where the girls were more gossiping and, you know, making insults and verbal, excluding me from social activities and things like that. But they were both aggressive, but in different ways. And I remember that, you know, some of the people, like some of the group, right,
Yep.
some of the boys, they didn't really want to participate in those big group raids towards me, like,
Right.
but because of their peer group,
They
because of
have
the
no
social
choice.
pressure, they say, hey, take a shot at her. So I mean, I remember a big circle around me, people taking turns kicking me in the stomach and putting my face down on the cement. Um, it was really, really painful physically, but I not just physically, emotionally healing from that is hard. And then when I would come home, like, my, of course, my family was upset, but then what do, right? Like, they tried to talk to, you know, the parents of some of the kids, saying, you know, this is what your kid is doing, but they were also ignorant. Like, the response from some of these parents was like, well, that's, you know, that's how kids are.
Yep.
There was no compassion, and the school didn't do anything, and it was horrible. And so I know what it's like to be judged, and I know what it's like to, you know, for people to have stereotypes and impressions. And because my eyes are small, because of aniridia, you know, people always say, "Oh, you're so sleepy. You look so tired." Or it was, you know, as I got to high school, it was like, "Are you high?" And you know, always making these kind of jokes about me.
Mhm.
And so, as a young person trying to grow up, even though I was born and raised in Canada, I was often asked, like, "So, are you really from here? Like, go
I
back,
just
go
I
back
just had to
home."
ask you that question, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I have to, because I mean, well, now we're still new, relatively new culturally, right? By the cultural exchange,
yeah,
we're a diverse country, so we get to experience many cultures here in Canada, and especially in the GTA.
yeah,
But we're relatively new at this, and I think, like you said, everybody having to participate will change that culture. And I'm a part of that culture. I grew up in the 70s.
yeah.
I was a white guy, and white boy in the 70s.
Mm.
And so, can I ask you one question though? Did you maybe study psychology because you wanted to know why? Did you wanted to get
Oh
to the
yeah.
under?
So I actually psychology. I've always been into human behavior. So I actually started my undergrad was in sociology because I was always interested in societal influences and socialization, how that impacts the way people think.
Mm,
Because one thing I was taught growing up by my family was that people are product of their environments, and so anything that we are is because we've learned to think that way, right? All thinking, all knowledge is learned. You have your personality, but a lot of socialization impacts. So I studied sociology, and then from there, because I was so passionate about anti-bullying and how to prevent violence, I pursued mediation and conflict resolution, and from there, from that internship, I worked with a lot of nonprofits. So I worked at Jane and Finch. I worked at Community Mediation Services of Downsview. I worked with John Howard Society. If anyone's familiar with that, it's working with men in conflict with the law. I worked for many, many nonprofits. And then from there, I went on to pursue my master's in social work, which was a nice fit because, I started to see how there's certain interventions and things that, because it's a new field as well. So kind of combining a little bit of my sociology, but with actual evidence-based treatments and research. So I did that. And then after that, I did my master's in criminological research from the University of Cambridge in the UK.
wow.
And so again, it's studying why are people violent? Why are people hurting people? What's going on here? And so I actually, in Cambridge, I actually looked at sort of neurological risk and protective factors. So what's happening in the brain that makes some people excited and upset, and they get into a rage and they hurt people, and what is the difference between manslaughter versus somebody who has a kind of an intentional
Right.
idea of hurting someone. So I worked in corrections. I used to teach these offenders cognitive behavioral therapy programs on anger management, how to reduce domestic violence. So anyone who was charged with certain crimes, like violence-based crimes, I would be teaching them workshops on how to manage their arousal when they get upset. Because some people certainly felt bad that they ended up getting in trouble with the law, or they hurt people. They at the time they couldn't help themselves. Some people told me that. Some people wanted to, but some people, they recognized that it was a problem. And I have seen people change. So I did criminology, and now I've come to psychology. So it's not that I've had just one, academic sort of pursuit. I've sort of kind of gone into, but they're all are related because they're all having to do with understanding human behavior.
Right. Yep. I've been a relatively student of humanities myself. I
Yeah.
don't have any degrees. I don't have the advanced schooling, but
Yeah.
again, I've always been in a profession that deals with the public.
Yes.
I interact with the public on a daily basis. I'm a good judge of character, while not judging people at the same time. I've always tried to be impartial, because again, any one of those people could be me on a different level or a different
Totally.
scale. That's the point of it all. We're all the same person trying to live a different.
Yes.
Some people are able to control themselves, some people aren't, and I'm glad for you able to say that people can change, because I know cognitive behavioral therapy worked for me.
Awesome.
change
Awesome.
my attitude, and it can work for others out there. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
We were talking about the relationship of your family. Can you describe for me the relationship with your father as a young girl, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, my father is amazing. He's always been so supportive and so loving. But it was we're immigrant family. My grandparents raised me and my brother for the first little while before I went to school, and so my experience was my culture. And my parents were both working really hard. They were out there trying to earn money, trying to take care of us. So I didn't spend too much time with my dad growing up because he was working all the time. But certainly when he came home, he always encouraged me to get education. And whenever teachers would say you can't do it or whatever, he would say no, you can, you will. And one of the main reasons I went to Cambridge was to make him proud,
Mhm.
because he always said that was a dream.
So
And
was he always with you, or like he's still with you?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
he's
okay.
very fortunate, very blessed.
It
Yeah.
just sounded like you did it, into as an inspiration because he wasn't with you. So I wanted to clarify that
Oh
there.
no,
So
it's just I felt, I mean, I went through a lot of mental health issues. I think most of us do, especially if we're victims of trauma and violence.
sure.
And it wasn't just easy for me to get through school. I struggled. I had my own self esteem issues. I had depression. I had anxiety of being in public. Like I didn't have a voice like I do now.
Mm.
And they said, no, you can do it. Doesn't matter what society says. Doesn't matter what people say. Prove them wrong. And I know I let my family down in some ways, which I'm not going to speak about today. But I feel I was kind of a rebel at one point in my life, and I tried to rebel against my culture, because typically when you are between two cultures, and one of the reasons why people are bullying you is because of your culture,
Mhm.
you try to resist your culture, right? So
Right.
there was a phase I went through when I wanted to reject everything in my culture. I didn't want to listen to the music or want the food or partake in anything that was Indian,
Right.
because that was like seen as like inferior.
Taboo. It's wrong at this point,
Yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
so
Let's talk about that for a
yeah,
second because,
yeah, sure.
again, you know what? I think we need to understand the culture that you're going through. You're a Canadian born,
Yeah,
but you're also caught between a rock and a hard place because you've come to this country. Your parents have brought you here to bring you a better life, which is the dream of everybody out there.
exactly.
We
Yeah,
all welcome you here, and then your parents are working hard. They're off day and night trying to pay
yeah,
for the life here,
yeah,
and so you're stuck with your grandparents
yeah.
who have this old school, old culture mentality from their old life in India, and they don't want you to lose your heritage.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
that's all they talk about all the time is, oh, your heritage and your Indian culture, and we have to go to these events. You have to
But
you know
yeah, but I have to say I'm very lucky that way. My grandmother really encouraged me to get high education.
Mm.
Same with my grandfather. My whole family has really been pushing me to do that, and I'm lucky because there are a lot of, unfortunately, Indian girls that are not encouraged to pursue
Right.
education, that are told your place is in the home and your highest goal in life should be to get married. But my family never said that. My grandfather was a very educated man. My grandmother wishes she could go to school, but at that time, girls did
It
not go
wasn't.
to
Yeah, it
school.
wasn't
So,
accepted.
so I mean, I'm fortunate for that, but they did speak Punjabi at home, right? So, like, my grandmother didn't really speak English. So, like, what I was around mostly was Indian culture, which is, I mean, it's a blessing now that I think of it, because I can speak my language. I a lot of kids, they can't. And so I now I see it as a double blessing to be in two cultures. But at that time, when you want to fit in as a young person, you try to resist
Yeah.
that culture. And so I never really had a strong sense of feeling Indian or Canadian.
Mhm.
And I struggled with my identity crisis,
Right.
trying to figure out what the heck, who am I? So I just kept, school was the only thing that I wanted to understand. Why are people doing like what's happening? Like, who am I? Who are they? So I took philosophy courses. I took all kinds of courses.
So I want to ask a question
Yeah,
because it looks like you turned to books for your answers.
yeah.
But did you have support, like human connection, friends, that other, when you're feeling down and depressed, did you have somebody to turn to?
I didn't have too many friends. I never really had too many friends. I had a few family friends, but I would see them on special occasions like festivities. But I kind of was a loner most of my life. I would say until I got to university. That's when I started to come out of my shell and started to make friends. I met my first boyfriend there, and I got involved with social activities, and I lived on residence. So I started to, I guess, interact with people and learn new things. And I started to at that point, but for most of my life, I actually had no supports or not really any friends, to be honest.
No, and that's why we ask that. Again, you're kind of painting a picture of your life, but it's probably the same picture of 100,000 other people out there.
Mhm,
So that's why I want to have these kind of conversations. So you had great relationships with your family. I mean, you have support, which is very important.
mhm,
So now you've got into college, you're experiencing more social relationships.
mhm.
How is that experience for you at that time?
So it was exciting. I always did want to have friends, but I never still felt like I could fit in
Mhm.
because I was almost developed, I guess what they call it is imposter syndrome, which is wanting to show that you're competent, but inside you don't feel you are. And even if someone gives you a compliment like, wow, you did a great job, you don't believe it, but you say, okay, thanks. But and still to this day I struggle with that to some extent. I mean, people on the outside might see me as successful, and now I'm starting to recognize my worth, and I tell myself, I'm great. But oh my gosh, it took years of
Right.
unlearning the brainwashing that happens with mental abuse, right?
Right. I
And so,
want people to see that for a second because look, I'm looking at a well put together lady. You appear very confident. You appear to be an extrovert. But I also
totally
believe, yeah, I
changed.
believe that's, complete opposite of who you truly were. So I want people to see that because, with some work and with some intense self-care, you
Yeah.
can become that different person who is competent and capable and can believe that there's a good person, strong person in there.
Yeah, I think it's really my spirituality that has saved me in terms of defining for myself, well, why am I here? Because when you don't really know why you exist, when you have low self esteem, when you think, what can I possibly contribute to this world? Like, why would anyone want to hear my voice?
Mhm.
You really start thinking about it. And with time, I mean, I started to get recognized. I started to make some friends. I started to test myself. And what's really great is because I've never really fit in, that has never been my objective for anything. I'm used to being alone. I'm used to being independent, not relying on people to get through things. So I'm very self sufficient that way. And if I have a different idea in a boardroom or in a committee, I'll state my opinion because I'm used to standing out and being the black sheep. So in a way, it actually gives you resilience to be that person, right? Who's not just following the crowd and not looking for that kind of validation. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what it's about. And then again, you talked about the purpose. And then you said earlier yours was to make sure others don't have to go through what you've gone through.
Exactly. And
Um,
now I feel like I found my voice. I didn't have my voice before. And one of the reasons why I put myself in this beauty pageant, I never thought in a million years I would be someone who would be in a beauty pageant. But this is a different type of pageant. They accept people of all colors, all shapes, all sizes, all sexualities. It's not the typical stereotypical beauty pageant. 40% is an interview to see how you talk and how you communicate, and volunteer work, community service, all of these things. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to put myself in an uncomfortable kind of position, because when you get out of your comfort zone, that's how you grow as a person. And if you stay with your comfort zone, you don't really transform. You don't really do anything different. So that's what I'm about now. I'll put myself in situations and just to see how would I do in that. Because if I already judge that, oh, I'm not capable, there's no way I can do this, then I'm not going to be able to know that for sure. So you have to experiment with yourself. And that's why I try to teach and coach my students. And actually, how I got to Cambridge was my students. I used to teach at a community college. And I used to always put quotes on the wall, like, you can be anything you want to be, and, believe in yourself and your dreams. And then my students asked me, Miss, what is one thing you've always wanted to do that you've never done? And I said, I don't know, like getting into Cambridge or Oxford or something. So they dared me. They told me to put in my application. I never in a million years would think I was worthy of getting into a Ivy League school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I had just gone through a divorce. My life was a bit of a disaster. My business had gone down the drain. I was not in a good place. And I wanted to feel good about myself again. I wanted to feel proud. And so I just applied.
And the rest is history at this point,
Rest
right? You are good enough.
So going to Cambridge was not really about the degree. It was just like, oh my gosh, you tell yourself you can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the greatest barrier in life. That's the greatest barrier. It's not even what other people say to you. It's actually what you say to yourself.
Yep.
This is what I've been telling people all these years teaching CBT, and you can be anything you want to be. I'm like, I'm such a hypocrite if I don't take my own advice. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to push myself in spaces where I don't think I can, like the beauty pageant, like Cambridge, like any of the stuff that I don't think I can do. I even put myself in a full marathon for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I have endometriosis and chronic pain. So, I mean, I have
Did you finish?
I did, and
Very
I got
good.
a medal. So it's just like when you keep testing yourself and you're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I can. So now my confidence is developed because I've deliberately and intentionally put myself in spaces that are out of my comfort zone.
Right. And I like the word that you used was experimented with yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because again, you know what, if you think of everything as an experiment, try it out. I'm trying to see what happens and see the result.
Exactly.
Because you never know, it might be that positive, great result that you want.
We limit ourselves with our belief. I
Right.
truly believe that. And if you're, when I say spirituality, I mean, we're more than our body,
right,
and our brain and our heart. We are spiritual beings. And so that's energy.
right.
And energy can do anything. Energy can
Make just
expand.
about anything happen. Right. We can make almost anything happen, but I think when we say I can't, we've already lost.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So absolutely. So when you've talked about your wealth of experience, your, men's work and the work in the correctional facilities, you have a vast experience in working with men and boys.
Yes.
So in your opinion, what is one thing our men and boys can do for themselves to help improve their lives?
So there's so much, but I think that men are equally, if not more, entrapped by the ideology of patriarchy, because it is a ideology that makes this pressure on men to be macho and tough and aggressive. And I remember working with these offenders where the only emotion that is allowed is anger, frustration, not crying, not being emotional, not being vulnerable, but through vulnerability comes strength. Because you're not a robot. Everybody has feelings. And if the only emotion you're allowed to show is anger, that is not healthy. And so what men end up doing is building it up, and then exploding.
Mhm.
And having a lot of mental health issues. I mean, in the work I've done as a social worker, usually it is the men who actually will go through suicide, whereas a lot of females might have ideology, they might think of suicide, but they might not follow through with it. But the men are more likely to follow through with it. Men are more likely to do overdoses. And particularly the opioid crisis has really affected men. A lot of men are in abusive relationships. And remember, if we just think of abuse as just physical, we are really limiting ourselves. I provided you an example today that those things that people say to you, they stick with you through a lifetime. My injuries on my nose, my black eyes, and everything have healed. But those things that people say to you, that lasts forever, right? Unless you do some serious work on yourself. So I think a lot of the guys, like I was saying, even some of them that used to beat me up, there were some that did not want to partake, and they tried to reason with the mean macho bully, and they were made fun of,
Right.
right? So the
Yep.
pressure, like, to fit in and conform, and that peer pressure, I think it's very strong for men to
Very.
be aggressive. And not so much sensitive. Now, females are aggressive, okay? I'm not gonna, but in a different way. And some of them are physically violent also. We should not assume that anyone is capable of physical violence. But when men are abused, they often do not speak out. They do not share what's actually happening because they're concerned that somebody will make fun of them. I've had clients that I've tried to help in my mediation work and work with the justice system that have said that they were abused by their partners, and they call CAS or they call the police, and they laughed at them.
Yep.
They mocked. They go, "Are you kidding me? You
Yep.
let your woman run you?"
Yep. I know somebody in my life who was an abused husband. Well, I mean, they were domestic, but I mean,
Yeah.
but again, when the man, again, he's a big man, and you would assume he was the aggressive partner. Anybody would. But here's a man who's being abused and trying not to retaliate, or trying not to go that road, but at
Right.
the same time, how do you get out of that relationship? How do you walk away?
How do
Because here's an abusive partner who says, well, you're not leaving me, what I mean? There's all kinds of
Yeah.
reasons why you're stuck in this relationship.
Yeah.
So here you are, a big man who you would judge to be an aggressive man was an abused husband.
Mhm. Yeah, and then you have to keep in mind the laws and the legal system. Historically speaking, women and kids were seen as the ones who are always the victims, and the male is always a perpetrator, and that's
Right.
just not true, right? It's very stereotypical.
Right.
But genuinely speaking, that still impacts, I think, some of the decisions that are made in court in
Yes.
terms of having custody. And having shared access with children, and parental rights. I know a lot of men, unfortunately, who are alienated from their children, and sometimes the woman uses the legal system as a dangling stick to say, I won't let you see your kids unless you do X and Y. And so you have to keep in mind, abuse is about threatening someone and intimidating someone, and saying, if you don't do this, I'll do this. I'll call the police. I'll make up a story that you beat the crap out of me. And, even if you're charged, I mean, how humiliating, how horrible,
And
right?
sometimes, even if you're not in charge, sometimes just even the scene on the front lawn with the
Yeah,
police and everything else is
exactly.
enough to cause, harm, because now the neighbors are all seeing this, man being accosted because he's the, harmful one. It's just,
And
these things
yeah,
happen on a daily
and
basis.
I would add that it's when you add the layer of a man who's a person of color,
Mhm.
that's at a different level altogether.
Right.
Imagine it's a black man or a brown man or whoever who is being accosted by the police on the front lawn.
Right.
What are the neighbors going to think? What if it's a Muslim man?
Yep.
right? And so people have already their biases and stereotypes. And once they see something like that, it reinforces this image in their mind, and then it's perpetrated not just against that person, you see, because we represent our communities. And so when somebody sees me, I'm representing Indian people,
Yeah.
right? Somebody else, you're the ambassador of Muslim people. Like it's like we carry that, and so anything somebody from our community does, you know, the whole, you know, society kind of says, oh, that's what these people are like. They're problem makers in the community. We have a nice, safe, gated community here, and look at these people, these
Yeah.
immigrants bringing their problems into our world, right? So
This,
this happens, yeah.
yeah, this is the culture that people are, this is everybody is faced with, right? No, it doesn't matter. Everybody is faced with some sort of systemic racism or bias put up even before they walk in the door, right? So,
Exactly.
I mean, it's a battle we all go through. So, thank you for that. And again, we as men have to judge and act accordingly. You know, it's unfortunate, but that's a way that we have to step and move forward.
And I thought it was important that I share and I speak today. I am in a beauty pageant. I call myself a feminist, but feminism does not mean down with men. Okay, this is not how to win any systemic battle. If you're a victim of homophobia or racism or any type of ism, I mean, we need to work together because it is about judging other people without knowing your facts. It's about mistreating people and not being fair. So I stand for humanity. I don't stand for a woman and down.
Yes.
I don't believe in that. I believe in solidarity and collaboration.
Yes, and blessings to you for that because again, we are Voice of Men 360, but that doesn't mean that we are, you know, all about men and only about men and there's no discrimination. No, we're about improving gender relations and promoting, you know, gender equality and family units, right? So that comes by coordination and working together and collaboration as you just mentioned. So
And I really respect that because, you know, a lot of groups that just focus on their platform just focus on that and don't see the intersectionality of oppression. And all oppressions are linked.
it's all connected.
Yeah. And I like the name Voice
Yes.
of 360 because it is a stronger voice when more of us are on board.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, the more people we can get on board, the more people we can get having these conversations, the more work we can do because the more people are aware. And that's all we can do is raise our voice, right? So, and so one last question. You kind of answered it, but I have to ask it out loud. What can we as a society do to help our men and boys overcome these challenges?
So I think it's a great tangent that I just ended with is we need to work together. We need to do more partnership building, linking with other community-based organizations. I love the work that I'm doing in terms of education, diversity, and inclusion training. I'm doing that with organizations right now. I get contracted by different companies to do that because they're seeing that in policies, it's embedded, right? Discrimination or systemic biases. And so, actually collaborating with different community partners, having sessions like this where you meet with different people, you interview them, and we start to see the similarities of our stories,
Yes.
right? And
Despite culture, despite
yeah,
belief.
instead of focusing on our differences, what do we have in common? I
Yes.
mean, all this time, my whole life, I thought I was an outsider and I didn't fit in. But frankly, there are a lot of us out there. And so if we see that, and you know, we collectively work together to abolish violence in all its forms, not just physical, but all its forms. That's systemic policies,
Right.
procedures, discrimination, all that stuff. We're raising awareness. And one of the reasons I'm doing my PhD is I want to be a university professor. I want to write research articles. I want to publish scholarly journals because that is the way to change the world,
Right.
is to actually prove things are a problem. I know that it's a problem, but unless funders see that there is the evidence or a research that proves it's a truth, an objective truth, not a subjective truth, but an objective truth, things don't get funded, people don't listen to you, right? So you have to go that extra mile to make an effort, right, to substantiate the evidence. And this is in a way a qualitative research, which you are all doing. Every week you interview people, you ask them questions, and if there's enough of us who speak out, that's evidence,
Mhm.
right? Just like when you go
Yes.
to court, you need proof to say what you're saying, because other people on the outside are not going to believe you,
Mhm. And
right?
there are so many commonalities between all the people that we're talking about. You know what I mean? There's so many um, similarities. We're all living the same life.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to leave with people? Anything you want to say before leaving us?
Well, I want to say it's an honor to be interviewed. Again, looking back in my life, I never thought I would be the person I am today. For the first time, I can say I'm proud of who I am. I can look in the mirror without shame. And you can do that too. If I've done it, you can do it, right? But it starts with you. It's actually not validation on the outside. I see so many people, so many young people, particularly, who look for validation from the outside world to say you are enough.
Mhm.
But knowing that you are already enough, you can just refine yourself, refine your own beauty, find your own voice. And every voice is unique. And when I do diversity training, I say, look at all the different flowers out there. Look at all the different animals, all the species. If we were all supposed to be the same, life would be so boring, right?
Mhm.
So find your life purpose, figure out, why am I here? And once you know that, nothing, nobody can pull you down,
Yes.
because you're working for something higher and bigger than yourself. And that's what now I feel like I'm being guided by that. I don't look for things like this, they just come to me because I'm living my life purpose. So
Yes.
thank you so much. It was an honor. I appreciate the time.
Oh, absolutely. Vanita, sharing your life experience, your life story is not easy to talk about. Not
Yeah.
everybody's willing to share their personal life journey or their experiences, their struggles. I could see the emotion. I could see the struggles that you were going through as you're telling your story. So I truly appreciate your courage and willingness to be open to share that with other people. So thank you for being here today and joining us and sharing your life journey with everyone.
That is the only way to really, if people hear your voice and if you are vulnerable. And so never be scared of sharing your story, because
Mhm.
you can inspire someone else. And that's what I live for now. I mentor others, I coach them, I try my best to support other people to be the best they can be. I wish I had that growing up. And so if I've made any difference to anyone, I'm so eternally grateful.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us today. It was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
When people like Vanita come forward and share their life experiences on platforms like ours, especially on social media, it gives people hope out there that they can change their mindset and change their life in a positive direction. That's our goal here with Voice of Men 360. We want to bring out individuals and allow them to share their life journey, have an open conversation about men's problems and challenges, and how we can help them overcome them. So I want to share a few announcements to end the show. Next week is Father's Day and National Indigenous Peoples Day. Voice of Men 360 will be hosting two special shows. The first one is a roundtable discussion on systematic racism among Indigenous communities. That will take place on Saturday, June 19th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Um, we'll have community leaders and social activists out to discuss areas of policing, medical, and social services. The second one will be on June 20th, and that's Let's Celebrate While They Are Alive. That's an honor of Father's Day, and we will have a roundtable discussion for Father's Day, where different people from different walks of life will be sharing their memories about fathers and how we can help young fathers to become better fathers.
Mhm.
We have 4 live shows. First one is Open Up, which you've just enjoyed today. That takes place Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We also have Vili, which is a Tamil live talk show. That is Sundays at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. We have a monthly webinar. This is the first Saturday of every month from 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern Time. Then our monthly special show is called The Unspoken Tears. That'll be the second Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The focus of this Unspoken Tears is domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual assaults, and human trafficking.
Wow.
These things do happen, and we do have these discussions here in Voice of Men 360. Also, we will have a panel discussion once a month in both English and Tamil, and we bring people from different parts of the world. Please visit our platforms to find out more about those. And then we turn all of our content into podcast episodes. Please join us for more of those. You can find us on all of your major platforms: iPhone, Google Play, Spotify, and more. And then the monthly men's group meeting. This is a men's only peer support group. Is the third Sunday of every month from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. through Zoom. Please register for your invite to that. The next one will be again Father's Day, June 20th. We also have another men's support group or support group for Indigenous peer-to-peer. So not necessarily for men, but Indigenous community peer-to-peer support group. That is the fourth Friday of every month from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. through Zoom. We call that Pass the Talking Stick. And the next one will be Friday, June 25th for that. There are no limitations with age, gender, ethnicity, or nationality. We want all walks of life to participate in our shows, so please reach out to us and become part of our community and help us out in any way you feel might share this message and share the value that we're working towards. We'd love to work with individuals, professionals, community organizations, or NGOs or government organizations. Reach out to us. Again, we are Voice of Men 360. Our phone number is 437-889-8329. Call us at 437-889-8329. Our email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. So that makes our website www.voiceofmen360.org. And you can find Voice of Men 360 on all your social media platforms, including our group, Facebook/groups/Voice of Men 360. Please reach out to us on all your social media: Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and more. And then like and subscribe for more videos from Voice of Men 360. Thank you for joining us today. Please continue your support. Until next time, I'm RJ Horner, Vice President of Voice of Men 360 and your host of Open Up. Thank you for joining us. Better days ahead.